Welcome to Executive Exchange Radio with moderator Joe Cristiano, America's corporate exorcist. Hosted by Dr. Jennifer Beeman and George Gutierrez, trusted advisors to chief executives and business leaders across the nation. If you would like to add to the conversation, call 646-652-4620.
All right, now, how do we make this conversion? Performance appraisals. I've always I don't think there's a person in the world that likes performance appraisals. Unless they know they're going to get promoted because of it, and then maybe that one time in a lifetime that they like it. Do we eliminate them altogether? It takes a totally different mentality when you take away the stratus of the status of positions. How often had I heard when I was in working for large corporations, rank has its privileges. I hated that remark. I remember when I used to be a facilities manager for this one corporation, and they insisted that all of the managers have these special parking spaces that were right next to the front door and all this, which I wouldn't do when they said rank has its privilege. And I was in constant battle with these clowns. How do you get into a corporation, and change this mentality where the only difference between the worker and maybe the supervisor, the supervisor has a wider breadth of what is going on, and they disseminate that information to the worker so that they can perform their individual task properly and see it as part of the whole. Or am I all wet?
So let me jump in here, because that's a good question, and I refuse to give you the answer. Just
you're going to make me suffer, aren't you?
Yeah, but here we can take. Let's turn this around on the conversation, because I think that this is an example where the military got it right. So in the military, because their mission, has all kinds of impacts that could be really, really bad or good, they take this performance review conversation seriously, okay? So if you're an employee, I'm talking about the armed forces. I'm not talking about some of the other federal organizations. But if you're an employee in the armed forces and you have not made it to the management level yet, then you get counseled monthly, okay? So that happens on a monthly basis. If you're a middle manager, okay, as an employee, if you're a middle manager, in the armed forces, you get a performance evaluation or review or a counseling, okay, once a quarter. And if you're a senior leader, you also get it once a quarter. So everybody, has some sort of supervisor that they answer to. So, for example, when Steve was being counseled, he was counseled by his direct supervisor. Now, here's what the military did differently. You got counseled by your immediate supervisor, but then that particular counseling or evaluation went one level up. It went to the other person's supervisor, and they reviewed it. So it took, before that was approved, it took 2 layers of management to approve, what you were getting at the end of the year. And because of that regular, recurring counseling activity at every level of the organizational leadership, to include the employees, then the relationship that Dr. Beeman was talking about earlier, okay, was fomented, and it was developed into a more cohesive organization. And one of the things that Steve was talking about was that every person that was under his command, he would teach to make sure that if they had a team, or a department of 5 or 6 people, then that manager's job his responsibility was to know the name of the individual, the name of the spouse, and the name of the children, because it was a relationship that was personal.
Right.
And leadership is personal. It is not about pay raises. And when you are really committed to an organization's goals, whether it be in the military or whether it be in a nonprofit or whether it be in my organization or Dr. Beeman's organization or whether it be in Goldman Sachs, if you truly are committed on the things that these are organizations are peddling, then you have got to be committed to each other. And people are important. And giving them the respect that Dr. Beeman was talking about earlier by correcting somebody on the spot, not embarrassing them, not saying, drop out and give me 50, and do that in the public shameful kind of way. All that does is foment resentment.
Right.
And so one of the tips that I think I wanted to share with everybody is learn to coach. And if you know anything about, a business coach, he does very little talking, but he has very deep questions.
Right.
And at the end of the coaching session, they like to have added value to the person being coached, to where they get some clarity and they see where mistakes were made, and then map out, for the next 30 days, for example. So what are you going to achieve for the next 30 days? What are your goals? And because now you have a communications process where there is a sender and there's a receiver and there's a signal that is going back and forth, and so there's a conversation that is not necessarily, with your finger on somebody's chest and saying, just because I'm parked outside on that thing that says VP, I have power over you. Because one of the things
can I add something to that, George, too? When you implement this, people start to care. When we know somebody's name and their wife's name or their spouse's name, their children's name, what they like to do, we know them and we're interacting with them regularly, we actually start to care about them and they care about us. And guess what happens? When we care about each other, we're going to care about the place where we work. We're going to care about our common goals, and we're naturally going to do more better. Yeah. More better. How did that sound?
Yeah, more better. I like more better. That's the term I use all the time. Okay, you're with me. But from a corporate exorcist point of view, let me turn the world upside down on you. All right. Since I'm the world's foremost corporate exorcist, I know everything. You know that. I know that. No problem. Right. Now, here, from an exorcism point of view, what I would do with every corporation is I would have every supervisor and every manager be given an appraisal by their subordinates, so they know what they need to do to make themselves more effective. That's one thing you very rarely see done. If I was a supervisor, I've never made a mistake. I made a mistake back in 1951, but I corrected it immediately. I admit it, all right? So I'm not perfect. But, this is the attitude that many managers take, in that they're more perfect than everyone else, and the higher you go in a corporation, the more perfecter you get, right? But from a corporate exorcist point of view, we know that's not the truth. In fact, it's usually the reverse. But what we want to know is, if we want to be a good coach, shouldn't we have the people tell the supervisor, saying, this is what I need from you. These are the problems that I'm having. This is what's lacking in the corporation for me to do my job. Don't we have the tables really reversed?
I think that is part of the process that we're suggesting.
Oh, okay.
So,
all right.
So when you're going through the counseling process, there's a conversation to where the other person, has the authority, to say these are the problems. No, but I think you're taking it to a notch higher, and I do like it. So back in the 70s, I think we called them rap rooms. Remember, we sat into a bean bag and smoked a little dope and sat around and say, "Wow, man, the world is really coming to an end." No, what we recommend, or we often recommend, we do, is to have controlled feedback sessions. Okay, to where once a month, you bring in your team and you say, "Okay, guys, I need your feedback. So this is your time to really ask questions, and so the leader has to open himself or herself to have that mindset because he or she may hear things that they don't want to hear. Yeah. But that's okay.
And there's no retaliation. There's not going to be any retaliation for anything that's said negative. Yeah. That's another thing I want to add.
Exactly. But, so those sessions are very beneficial because then the person that is being counseled, if you would, is the one that is the so-called manager. And because a lot of times they just don't have the clarity to see everything around them. Yeah. But it has to be something that is scheduled. It has to be something that, there's no repercussions that are taken, after the fact. And there has to be a time to clarify things and explain things and then make a commitment to the team, to work together and continue to do
but George,
continue to do more better.
In all fairness, do we need to have this? This is that one time, the third Wednesday of every month or whatever the case may be. Shouldn't this be an open dialogue that occurs minute by minute, second by second, every single day that you're working? Anytime that you need to speak to your supervisor, or you need to coach your supervisor to tell the supervisor what you need to do your job more efficiently. Should that be a formal thing, or should that be an open door policy 24 hours a day?
I think open door policies are good to have, okay? But they also need to be managed because they're often abused. So if you have a relationship with your first line supervisor to where there's an honest and open conversation between the two, then you can bring whatever grievances you have to that person. And then that person can solve those grievances, taking it to the next level. But every time you have to go to the CEO's office and use his or her open doors policy is because there's been a failure in the system. And everybody else in between is not doing their jobs.
Yeah. Hold on a second. We have... All right. Stephen, you have something you want to say? You want to add something to it? You want to get him on?
I do. The problem is I'm watching. I think I'm about 20 seconds behind you.
Okay.
All right. George is talking about the open door policy.
Yes.
And absolutely, you must have an open door policy. And he is 100% correct.
Right.
By stating that policy can be abused if not gone through the first line supervisor.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Really quick.
I don't think I understood what you just said, Stephen.
Oh, I was listening as George was talking about the open door policy.
Yes.
Yes, I agree that you need to have an open door policy.
Right.
He is also correct by stating that open door policy can be abused or not used correctly.
Oh, yeah. I agree. Any process can be abused, but eventually, if it's genuine enough and held in working condition long enough, eventually people say this is now the culture, becomes part of the culture of the organization, and it's not a program, it is the way the company operates.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it just takes time. Yeah, I guess it just
takes time. Yeah, well, and going way back to what we said in the beginning, as far as what do you want to call it, counseling or career management, however you want to word that, is that the employee or the person in your organization has the confidence to come to you because they have the confidence that you are there for their best interest. Right. You don't have to be their best buddy. You don't have to be their friend, but they know and trust and believe in what you are trying to do for an organization. Yeah, that is key. That is paramount. Yeah. Otherwise, you will not succeed.
I've worked for many guys that were just buddy and all that, but
no, that doesn't work.
Absolutely worthless as being a partner in the business, if you will, in the department that we're in.
It does not work.
And I agree. That's at least been my experience. I mean, it's nice to be a nice guy, but when you're a nice guy with no substance,
I'm not saying be a tyrant. No, exactly. Do not be a tyrant. Yeah. But you have to be the leader. Someone has to be in charge. And by being in charge, like going back to what the doctor said and what George has been talking about, you have to understand who works with you, who works for you, and what the end result is. Yeah. And the only way you can accomplish that goal is by knowing who works for you. You have to understand who they are, where they come from, what their goals are, what their needs are, and how can you make that better for them. That doesn't make you a buddy. It doesn't make you pal. But yet you have to have that open door where they can feel not intimidated by you, able to walk into your door and say, hello, Stephen, or hello, George, or hello, Dr. Beeman, I have this problem. How can I fix this? Right. We do it together.
Yeah,
that's
and you have to be almost a disciplinarian, but not a mean person. You have to have the right heart when you do it.
Absolutely.
And people know that. And the people know that although you're directing them to do something that they don't want to do, they know it's in their best interest, so they don't hold it against you. That's a tough one to get to, but that's the objective, I guess.
It's boundaries. It's creating boundaries.
It is, and going back to coach, teach, and mentor, myself growing up in a very small town, okay? So, grew up in a small town upstate New York. I went to school, I played sports, I joined the Army. Now, with that being said, I had my parents who were wonderful, but there were certain things I couldn't go to my parents for. I had certain teachers that I went to, I had coaches in sports I went to, I joined the Army, I met certain sergeants and commanders and so on and so forth. It's a building process. And that whole thing that says a leader's born is a lie. An absolute lie.
Yeah, right. I say, yeah.
Coach, teach, mentor starts at a very young age, and it's a building process. I'm 48 years old. I'm not done learning yet.
You're 40 years old? Oh, my God, you're so old. Oh, my God.
No, I'm 48.
Oh, 48.
Yes,
that's even worse.
Yes, yes. But it's a process. It's an entire process. It starts from the time you are 1 year old until the day you die.
Yeah. Well, I'm about your age, but my numbers are reversed of yours. That's all.
Well, these things happen.
Okay. All right.
Well, all right. Like I said, I'm about 30 behind y'all, so I'm gonna stop talking now.
No, that's
to see what you guys are talking about.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
That's fine, sir.
I get silly sometimes. That's all.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Steve. Well, George, to wrap this thing up, we've overstayed our welcome once again. But what kind of success are you having, and what kind of resistance are you receiving from this process by your clients, or are they embracing it?
It depends on the organization. So for example, some manufacturing organizations are using it well, and some are just not allocating the time to actually teach the manager, the process. And those are the ones that are having the highest turnover rates. Those are the ones that the employees are the unhappiest. And those are the ones that are getting a lot of the complaints from their clients.
Yeah. And by the way, how do you measure success? How does the company measure success?
Well, there's a quarterly process. So it all in business, everything goes back to numbers. But you do have the intangibles, and one of the ways of measuring whether your leadership is working or not is if you look at number of accidents, look at number of workman's comps that are occurring, so forth.
Well, turnover would be another one, wouldn't it?
Turnover. You can tie all that to leadership.
Okay.
All of that can be tied to leadership.
All right. Well, George,
you should measure everything.
Yeah. Dr. Beeman, yes? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, it's okay. I was just to summarize what he was saying. We should measure everything because we can measure qualitative information, those intangibles, so we can get the results and make sure that we're constantly moving in the right direction.
Right.
I think that's where a lot of organizations don't realize they can do it, or they fail to do it, or they have other priorities. And this is when they need to get their priorities straight.
Okay. Yeah. All right, George, you want to say some closing words before we go off the air?
No, I really appreciate it. I thought it was very lively. I think I'm going to add better to my vocabulary now. I really like that. No, but just to the listening audience, thank you for listening. We really appreciate your comments, especially when you call and or when you comment on the internet. And I just want to say to to Joe and to Gary. What a great job you guys are doing today. I think it's been the best experience we've had all year in terms of the technical part of this thing. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
you, Command Sergeant Major Stephen Smith, Dr. Jennifer Beeman, and George Gutierrez of the Executive Exchange Radio. Thank you so much. And I guess we'll be on in the next couple of weeks. We'll have another session.
Yes, we will.
Okay, look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks,
Bye,
this is
guys.
the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank everyone for listening in. And so in a couple of weeks, we'll be back with another session with Executive Exchange Radio. Until then, stay well, stay tuned.
Thank you.